Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is directed by Cathy Yan and stars Margot Robbie, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Ewan McGregor, Chris Messina, and a few other people as well, and is a somewhat continuation of Suicide Squad, but rather than being a straight-up sequel, it just follows Margot Robbie's portrayal of Harley Quinn. I genuinely didn't know what I was getting myself in for with this movie, purely because the whole DC movie landscape is kind of in a weird position right now. You have movies like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and even Shazam that are still set within the DCEU that Zack Snyder set up a few years ago. But that being said, you now have movies like Joker and the upcoming Batman movie directed by Matt Reeves, which have nothing to do with the DCEU and will just be doing their own thing. And I feel like Birds of Prey kind of falls somewhere in the middle of that. Even though it is still semi-related to Suicide Squad, it feels like it's trying to be as different from that as it can and try and do its own thing. So yeah, that's why I was a little bit hesitant going into this movie, because I didn't quite know which end of the spectrum it was going to fit in, whether it was still clinging on to the DCEU or whether it was trying to be something different and do its own thing separate from all of that Zack Snyder stuff. And like I said, you get something in the middle, and for the most part, this is a pretty decently enjoyable movie. It's nothing mind-blowing, but it gets the job done, and it is pretty entertaining for the most part. I'm going to start off by saying that my favourite thing in the entire movie are two specific performances, that of Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. Now, Margot Robbie was one of my favourite things in Suicide Squad. Looking back at that movie now, it really isn't that good and is just a mess from start to finish. But one of the best redeeming aspects of that movie was her portrayal of Harley Quinn, because it was so spot on. From the accent to the way she acted, even to the clothes she was wearing, it was pretty much spot on. The annoying thing was, there wasn't that much room for her to shine. She got quite a lot of screen time in Suicide Squad, but I feel like we were only seeing the start of what is possible for that version of Harley Quinn. And thankfully, with Birds of Prey, she gets the limelight right from the word go. This movie is pretty much just entirely about her, which is why, I mean, I kind of get the Birds of Prey title, because the group dynamic does play a part towards the end of the movie, but for the most part, this is Harley Quinn's movie. So whether you want to call it Birds of Prey is something a little bit questionable, but this is Harley Quinn's movie whether you like it or not, and seeing her come to her full potential in this movie is very satisfying, considering that is one of the aspects of Suicide Squad that I liked the most and wanted to see more of, and luckily I got more of that in Birds of Prey, and Margot Robbie is absolutely brilliant in this movie. She really has nailed that persona and characteristics that sum up Harley Quinn in a nutshell, but they also do a few things here and there that kind of subvert what you're thinking about Harley Quinn and actually make her very likeable, and I thought that was really good, especially considering she is first and foremost a bad guy character. But what they do in this movie is they make you think about that and actually treat her with some dignity and make her a somewhat nice person towards the end. And I quite liked that whole dynamic and how it shifted throughout the movie. Ewan McGregor, though, as Black Mask, I've never seen him have so much fun with a role than he is having in this movie. You could see him being a bit too over the top at some points in this movie, but to be honest, it works, especially fitting with the tone of the movie. I think it works a lot better than it really should. That being said, if you know the character of Black Mask, this is very out of the ordinary. I mean, when I think of Black Mask, I don't necessarily think of a kind of campy, over-the-top person like that is portrayed in this movie. But, like I said, for the tone and feel of this film, Ewan McGregor's performance really works. And I loved every moment he was on screen. He chewed the scenery in the best way possible. Another highlight for me was Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress. Unfortunately, she doesn't get much screen time, but I really liked every moment she was on screen, and there was just this instant badass nature she brought to the movie just from the moment she first appeared, and I really liked her performance in the movie. That being said, though, like I mentioned a little bit ago, is that the whole Birds of Prey aspect of this movie doesn't really kick in until like the last 30 to 20 minutes, which is a real, misleading thing when your main movie, the title itself, is called Birds of Prey. When they do eventually group up, it is very satisfying to see because you've seen all their individual stories happen at specific points, and having them all come together does feel rather satisfying. And when they do come together and kick ass, it is very entertaining to watch, and is handled somewhat very well. It's handled pretty well. But that being said, it doesn't really happen until like the last act of the movie, which is fine. And for the sake of the story and how it flows together, it's fine and it works. But I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of the title and could have really happened a little bit sooner. Also, there are certain characters I would have liked to have seen a lot more of, i.e. Huntress. What we got was really good, but I just want to see more of that character and what she is able to do, and I would happily take a solo film of Huntress just to learn more about her backstory and where she goes from here. And the other characters as well, like Black Canary, I just want to see more of them, and I feel like you don't get that much of them in this movie, but what you do get is pretty good. Cathy Yan's direction of this movie is pretty decent. Again, it's nothing mind-blowing like the movie itself, but it is very good for what it is and gets the job done. One thing I do like about not just the direction of this movie, but the feel and tone of this movie as well, is that it feels like it nailed what Suicide Squad was trying to be. Suicide Squad, right from the moment it started, felt like a jumbled mess that was trying to fix itself and piece itself together as it went on, and it was just failing and clambering, getting the pieces as the movie carried on. But with Birds of Prey, it feels a lot more focused, and actually has a start, middle, and end, and knows what it's trying to do from start to finish. Like, it has a very distinct through line in terms of tone and feel, and also characters and story. Whereas Suicide Squad had a tone, and unfortunately that tone became so overbearing and muddled that the story and the characters and everything else kind of just got lost in the mix. Birds of Prey, though, feels like it's a lot more tighter experience and also flows a lot better and just feels focused overall. And that's one thing that I have to give massive praise to about this movie, especially over Suicide Squad, because you're damned if you're not going to compare the two. It's inevitable. People are going to instantly compare this to Suicide Squad. And I feel like Birds of Prey does this whole thing a lot better than that movie ever tried to. Like I said, though, this movie isn't perfect. It's nothing mind-blowing. It gets the job done, but that's about it. There are some interesting fight scenes. The characters are interesting to watch. And like I said, the whole tone and feel of the movie is much better executed here than it ever was in Suicide Squad. But that being said, I feel like the movie was lacking something overall. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I felt like it could have done something a little bit more, and I don't quite know what that bit more was. But either way, it was lacking something, and I feel like it just could have gone a little bit further. In the end, this was a perfectly enjoyable movie that really doesn't break the mold in any way, shape, or form, but gets the job done as well as it could have done, which is why I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. If you liked the character of Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad and wanted to see more of her, then this movie will be right up your alley. Yeah, there's not really much else I can say about it. Some of the set pieces were pretty cool, some specific moments were pretty cool, but as a whole, it just really didn't do much to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, and could have done a few things here and there to really make it stand out. But for me, I thought this was a perfectly okay movie. Nothing amazing, yet nothing awful either. So guys, that was my review for Birds of Prey. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye.